Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, 888-589-8840, number to call. This segment, I want to get into my final theory on the Malaysian airliner flight. The Malaysian government announced today that it has gone down in the Indian Ocean. They've got satellite data now confirming that, and I want to explain what I think happened. This would have been my theory from day one if we had had this information, but the Malaysian government did not release this particular information until yesterday. I'll tell you what that information is and what the significance of it is. Let me ask, before we jump into that, let me ask you what you would think. What would happen if a Republican received an award that was named in honor of an ardent supporter of the KKK? You've got members of the pro-family or leaders in the pro-family community that are still being criticized for speaking at what were reputed to be white supremacist events, or buying mailing lists from David Duke, the Ku Klux Klan guy from Louisiana. They just never let up. They've tried to go after Chris McDaniel, who's running in the Republican primary against Thad Cochran in Mississippi, for some kind of ties to some white supremacist organization. He wasn't even in the state when he was supposed to have been at this event. So they just go absolutely ballistic looking for some connection between conservatives and the KKK. Remember, the KKK is a Democrat organization. It was formed by Democrats. It was run by Democrats. It was managed by Democrats. Robert Byrd, one of the leading Democrats in the Senate, was a Grand Kleagle or Grand Claxon or whatever the term is in the KKK. He was a Democrat. It was the Democrats that opposed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. It was Democrats that tried to filibuster the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Acts of 1964, 1965. Well, anyway, here is a leading politician who is accepting an award which is named after and named for an ardent, outspoken advocate of the KKK. The politician receiving the award is Nancy Pelosi. The award is named after Margaret Sanger. Planned Parenthood Federation of America, who's the founder of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood announced that House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, an alleged Roman Catholic, will be given the Margaret Sanger Award, the organization's highest honor, in recognition of her leadership, excellence, and outstanding contributions to the reproductive health and rights movement over the course of her career. Now, I'm looking at a picture. This is an amazing thing. I'm looking right here is a picture. This is on directorblue.blogspot.com. A picture of Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, standing on a cart at a Ku Klux Klan rally. And she's surrounded by all of these KKK guys in their white robes and their white pointed hoods, giving the kind of Sieg Heil salute in her direction. This is Margaret Sanger speaking at a KKK event. She was an advocate for the Ku Klux Klan and a zealot for calling out inferior races from the nation's gene pool. This is Margaret Sanger. So there she is. You know, Margaret Sanger believed that the Negro race was inferior and ought to be exterminated, that they were like human weeds. That was her expression for blacks. They were human weeds, and they needed to be exterminated. And she said, look, we can't tell anybody what we're up to, but that is our goal, to eliminate them as noxious weeds. So that's Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood, Nancy Pelosi unblushingly receiving an award named in her honor. Speaking of the war against women, Michelle over there in China, referring to Barack, saying, quote, he has dragged me kicking and screaming into things that I wanted no parts of. Now, what does that sound like to you? I mean, how would they react if a Republican wife said that? My husband has dragged me kicking and screaming into things I wanted no parts of. They say, look, we told you it's a war on women. It's being waged by the Republicans. They're like cavemen. They're like Neanderthals, but Michelle can say it, and nobody reacts. Now, in Ethiopia, it's interesting. You contrast where the United States is going, Ethiopia is going. In Ethiopia, 97% of the populace there does not believe that homosexuality should be normalized or accepted as a legitimate way of life. So 97% of the Ethiopian populace has a biblical view of homosexuality. It should not be normalized. It should not be legitimized. It should not be legalized. And Ethiopian lawmakers over there are planning to pass a bill which would make same-sex acts between consenting adults a non-pardonable offense. In other words, if you got convicted of violating the law against sodomy in Ethiopia, you could not be pardoned for that. If you had a political leader who was so inclined, he would not be able to issue pardons for this kind of criminal behavior. This would be in the same category with what are the other things that are on that list as non-pardonable acts? Well, terrorism is on there, human trafficking, rape, political corruption, and smuggling would all be offenses that are considered non-pardonable. Right now, same-sex acts are illegal in Ethiopia, punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Now, you might think that's harsh, but remember, this general that was just court-martialed for sexual offenses, if he had been convicted of adultery, he could have been sent to prison for 15 years for adultery. 15 years, same penalty. I didn't hear anybody out there saying this is excessive, this is horrible, this is a gross miscarriage of justice. Adultery is a crime according to the Universal Code of Military Justice. You do the crime, you do the time. And in the military, for this particular form of sexual immorality, adultery, it's a 15-year prison sentence. Well, there's no reason, if homosexual behavior is sexually immoral, just as adultery is, there's no reason why a similar penalty would not be appropriate. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm saying it just would be consistent. In other words, if nobody's complaining about sending a general to the brig for 15 years for this kind of sexual immorality, adultery, there isn't any reason why it wouldn't be appropriate to send another member of the military to the brig for 15 years for homosexual behavior, which is likewise sexually immoral. All right, so that's what's going on over in Ethiopia. Now, back to the Malaysian plane, and then we'll take more of your phone calls, 888-589-8840. Now, I'm getting a text from a good friend of mine that maybe that Margaret Sanger photo I was looking at may be a doctored photograph, so I will have to put that caveat on there. There's no question, however, that she was a supporter of the KKK. No question that she spoke at KKK events. The particular photo I may have been looking at may not be authentic, so I want to mention that caveat. There's no question, though, about her speaking at Ku Klux Klan events. 888-589-8840 is the number to call. Yeah, and I just want to mention this just in passing. We know now that the missing jet, according to Malaysian authorities, disappeared in the Indian Ocean. And I think the reason is because of the cargo it was carrying, these lithium-ion batteries. The Malaysian authorities did not admit until yesterday that this plane was carrying tons, I mean tons, of these lithium-ion batteries. Now, these lithium-ion batteries, I mean, they can burst into flame all by themselves. We've had those stories of people with cell phones burst into flame in their pockets, or while they're talking on the phone, they burst into flame. Those are lithium-ion batteries. They can do that. Now, you get a bunch of them together. This is the problem they had in the Boeing 787. They used these packs of lithium-ion batteries. If you have packs of these batteries close together to one another, they can start to overheat. One of them bursts into flames. Then all of them start bursting into flames, and you get what's called a thermal runaway. A thermal runaway, which means you can't stop it. There's no way to control it. There's no way to put it out. It just burns and burns and burns. And so I am suggesting that that's what happened. And again, if I had known this day one, I would have said, look, I bet that's it. And they may have climbed to 45,000 feet to try to deprive the fire of oxygen. I don't know the details, but I know that airlines recommend you drop to 23,000 feet when you're trying to deal with fire on an aircraft. You try to get the plane on the ground as quickly as you can. That may be the reason why they changed course and went 270 degrees to the west, heading directly for a 13,000-foot runway, trying to get that thing on the ground just as quickly as they possibly could. So that's my suggestion. You got this tons of flammable cargo, these lithium-ion batteries. I think they burst into flames. Maybe smoke filled the cockpit, filled the passenger cabin. Everybody was overcome, including the pilots. Maybe that's why it flew kind of on autopilot for so long until it crashed into the ocean. So if I had known that day one, if the Malaysian authorities hadn't concealed that information from the public, I would have suggested that as a likely possibility from day one. There have been a total of 140 fires on planes that have been traced to lithium-ion batteries. You believe that? 140 between March of 1991 and February 17 of this year. 140 fires on airplanes. Remember, you're an airplane. You got no place to go. You can jump off a ship. You can jump out of a car. You're on a plane. You are stuck. You've had cargo planes that have burned to a crisp. UPS Airlines flight crashed while attempting an emergency landing in September of 2010 en route from Dubai to Cologne in Germany. Again, fire started by lithium-ion batteries. Well, let's grab a call before the break, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Trey in Shreveport, Louisiana. Trey, welcome. What's on your mind?
Call before the break.
Trey, let me have you turn your radio down so we don't have any interference from the background. Trey, are you with me?
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Go right ahead.
All right. I've listened to a lot of what you said. I listen to different radio stations because I like to get different perspectives of different groups of people. I am a devout Christian. I'm Baptist. I live for Jesus Christ. I'm a Democrat, but I will not compromise. I live for Christ daily.
Mm-hmm.
I'm referencing back to where you earlier in the show when you spoke about the New York Times talking about your right to worship as opposed to your right to exercise your religion. As a Christian, we should exercise our religion daily, by the second, by the minute, by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to, people with education really appall me sometimes. We get, the more educated we get, it seems like the more ignorant we get, or the more foolish we get. That the same people making the decisions against God are the same people who claim to be Christians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. Personally, as a Democrat, I don't think that I don't agree with everything Democrats do. There's some things that I agree with that
Trey, can you Trey, let me interject. Can you hang on for 2 minutes? Can you hang on over the break? I'd like to finish the conversation. Can you stick around?
Okay,
We'll be right back with Trey. Stay with us. Focal Point AFR Talk.